Okay, hello everybody. We're just setting up the Instagram. Sorry for the late start. We had some technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties. In other words, Dennis didn't know what he was doing. Technical difficulties.
Well, I
Thank
wasn't gonna say that.
No, but thank you for being kind.
Well, thank you for saying that. I was a little impatient, but I'm working on it. Um, okay, so today, here we are. We'll still go 30 minutes, even though we started late, right? Because we got a timer
Sure.
going. Yeah, because we want 30 minutes, because this is a robust topic. We're going to
Yes,
talk about
indeed. Indeed.
how much manipulation can cost in in professional settings, personal settings, or even in our vast global world. How now Dennis has done some research, so he can share some costs, but I would argue, because I do love to do that, that the costs are quite infinite and impossible to really get your hands around. But let's talk about what they are and how they unfold, because I find this to be, and certainly we won't hit all of them because they're vast and immeasurable. But I think that if you really understand that, it can be very motivating for you to address manipulation. Because right now, manipulation is on the rise, it's getting rewarded in our society. There's AI, and there are algorithms, and there are things that are used to gather data to manipulate even more. In fact, Dennis, I would say manipulating our attention is something that the smartphone and the computer does, and there is a cost to that, stealing our time and our attention.
Well, that's what social media is famous for. We know that.
Yes, and as we become more sophisticated as a society, I think that the manipulation, well, I don't think, I know, and you can
Hmm.
disagree with me if you like, but there's evidence everywhere that the manipulation is becoming more and more sophisticated and
Yeah.
automated, and
Mm.
I'll add another adjective, insidious.
Hmm.
Insidious, which means it is everywhere. You almost cannot get away from it. You can't even think your own thoughts anymore. So, what's the cost? What is the cost? Should we start with one, or should we just tackle the whole enchilada?
Well, we're talking about the cost. When you said personal and professional, you're talking about as we've been talking about for all this time, couple of years. We've been talking about the cost to you personally, you folks who are watching and listening to us right now. We've been talking, and we're most of all concerned about the cost to you, how you can protect yourself from these costs of manipulation. Today, we're going to talk about that. In addition, as Robin said, but we're taking it to, as Robin said, to the corporation, a more professional setting. So, what's the cost of manipulation in a corporate setting? Well, we changed the word corporate setting to professional, and that sort of links us to personal because that's you.
It could be
What's
any business setting, really.
one? That's right. Any business, which corporation just means big, but I mean, it could be any business setting, just as
Any,
manipulation.
it could be a small mom and pop shop.
Absolutely. Just as manipulation can occur in any setting, any situation, anywhere, all the time. So we're talking about it today in a slightly different way because we want to talk about the business environment within which manipulation occurs and what that costs. So we're going to talk a bit about what it costs you and what it costs a company and what it costs society. That's what we're talking about today.
And just as a reminder, Dennis and I are communication coaches and trainers, and we work for the Speech Improvement Company. And you can find out more about that at speechimprovement.com. So much of our experience has been being brought in to tackle this type of situation because they know that it's costing them. It may not be
Mhm.
measurable, but they know when Bob refuses to talk to Sarah, and he has to in order to be efficient and effective, it's costing them.
Yeah, yeah. And I also want to add that now that you mentioned speech improvement, we've been, as Robin said, we've been doing it. We've been doing it for the longest time. We are, in fact, the oldest communication coaching firm in the United States. So we've had a lot of exposure. We're celebrating our 60th year this year. We've had a lot of exposure to this manipulative behavior. And it comes to us in a, they don't always say manipulation, but once we get in there and start the coaching, we find out that's what's going on. Somebody's manipulating somebody. They didn't feel it. They don't know it, or they just recognized it. And we're facing it all the time.
How many times have we been brought in to do a workshop, maybe with 30 people or an entire department, because of
Oh, yeah.
one
One
person?
food. Yeah.
One person, not that it doesn't benefit all of them, but we'll get pulled aside by upper management and told, the reason we're having this workshop is because of Beauregard. Beauregard.
Right.
We would love to fire Beauregard, but we cannot because he knows too much. He has all the answers, but he's so awful. Nobody likes him, and he causes problems and he creates drama. And so now we're going to have a full day of the entire department. So Beauregard doesn't feel singled out. I don't know where I got that name from, but it's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just pick on the Toms and the Bobs and the Erics so much. I have to go with Beauregard now.
And sometimes the Beauregard knows that he is or
Has
she
no
is.
regard.
They're doing it, has no regard. They know they're being manipulative. And sometimes they
Yes.
don't. Sometimes we're called
Yes.
in there just to help them recognize that they're doing it, and then to help them recognize the behaviors and so forth and so on that relate to communication that are making everybody else feel bad or whatever. So it's
That's a good
communication.
point.
And as we've said many times, no communication, no manipulation happens without communication.
I'm going to
So,
add something like I always do. But did you finish? Sorry.
oh, like that matters if I finish? No, go
I'm
ahead.
trying. I got excited
Go ahead.
because
Go
no, I
ahead.
don't want, but I really get scared. I'm going to forget what I was going to say. Oh, so you made the point of Beauregard may know he's a manipulator and be very strategic about it, or he may not know he's a manipulator.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
however, the reason why it works is whether he knows it or he doesn't know it. It's essential that you put the manipulator on notice. You're not going to transform them. You're not going to change who they are. But now when the whole department is in a workshop where they are learning what is healthy, effective communication and what's unhealthy, it's now everybody is on the same page. It's a way of outing them without outing them, because
Mhm,
obviously that doesn't go over very well. When
mhm.
you pull somebody aside and say you're the problem or whatever,
Yeah.
it doesn't usually help. But now Beauregard, he's not gonna be able to do the same tactics that he had done before, because he knows what was said in the workshop, and that everybody in the department heard all of that and got those
So
skills.
so the question comes, why does somebody do that? Now we know in a personal setting,
Manipulate
and
me?
we know from our knowledge of work and manipulation that it's all about control. That
Control. Yeah,
a
100%.
serious nefarious manipulator, someone who does it for their gain only, and they don't care what it costs you.
Yep.
That's a little bit different than sometimes what happens in a corporation or in a company. Why does it happen there? Well, there are similar reasons. Let's explore those just for a minute. So at work, when you find this happening at work and you point out Beauregard, what the heck's going on there? Why is he doing that? Why is he like that? What gets him to be that way? Well, could be several reasons. One might be power and control. He literally is doing it to gain more power and control in the department, in the company, or whatever. That may be one reason he does it. He may do it to protect his security.
Yeah.
He
I was
he
gonna
only
say
because
insecure.
if he doesn't do it, he's going to lose his job or his position or his recognition. So power, control, security. He may be doing it because if he doesn't do it, this is his thinking. If he doesn't do it, there will be negative consequences to him. So he does it to somebody else because he doesn't care what happened to you. It's not the consequences for you. He's concerned about protecting the consequences that could occur to him. It's another reason people get into it. And then there are sometimes this is a little bit more uh, challenging to think about, but they're what we call cognitive biases. Sometimes people manipulate at work because they just think they're smarter than everybody else. They think they have more intelligence than the rest of the department. Whatever their job is, they think they're smarter. And to prove it, they manipulate other people around in many, many different ways. So
Mhm.
these are some of the reasons why we see these things in a work environment. It's not
Well, the
always,
worst thing is when they are smarter than everybody else, or
well,
they
yeah,
have more
yeah,
knowledge than anybody else.
yeah. And
Because
then
even if
they
they do, even if they have more history or more knowledge or more experience, whatever it is, it's still not effective to operate that way. And
of course not.
diminishing others, undermining others,
Of
you
course.
know, arrogance. The cost is huge to business.
Mm,
Huge. And
mm,
why?
right.
Why is it huge? Because people resent it. It
Yeah.
it pulls morale down. It demotivates people. And when nothing is said and nothing's addressed, and Beauregard is walking around being
Hmm.
maybe having the most experience, maybe having the most knowledge, and people have to grovel to get him to answer a question or help them with something.
Hmm.
It builds over time. It causes such resentment. And then you start losing good talent
Yeah.
left and right. So
Yeah.
that's the cost of keeping Beauregard and not addressing this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting numbers that apply to this that might be helpful and interesting to hear about. When you have workers who are, I want to cite a Harvard study that was done in 2019. When you have workers who are happy at work, who are getting along, or don't feel like they're being manipulated, and they feel good at work, on average, those people are worth about $5,000 to you a year. Okay, doesn't sound like much, but listen to this. The study found that if you have negative workers, people who are depressed, who are angry, who are feeling like they're being manipulated, the victims, the targets of the manipulator, those people can cost you as much as $14,000 a year, almost triple the amount of time. Why?
Yep.
Because you feel that way. And why? Because you've been manipulated at work for one of those reasons we were talking about. So there's a real cost in this. It's not just a matter of I feel bad, I don't want to go to work. It costs the company something.
Well, there's estimates, Dennis, about 7% of society, somewhere from between 7 and 10% are true manipulators. The people who narcissistic personality disorder, sociopath, psychopath, no conscience, no accountability, self-gain manipulators, right? They only know how they feign empathy. They don't have true empathy. Okay. So you got to figure it's 1 in 10 or 1 in 7. So you got them. And the thing about them, the thing about this person is the effect that they have on everyone around them far exceeds what
Mm.
a
Yeah, that's right.
regular person who has functional, healthy communication skills. These are people that you're hearing their name all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, was Bob oh, no, I'm not gonna
Oh,
pick on Bob. Was
yeah,
Beauregard in the meeting?
yeah, yeah.
You have to meet with oh, no, you've got that issue with the customer, you're gonna have to ask
Mhm,
Beauregard for help. You hear this buzz
mhm, mhm,
everywhere. Their
yeah.
names, and by the way, they love that.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That's,
sure. That's a
it's
win.
about control, it's about attention,
Yep, yep,
and they
yep,
love that their name's on everybody's lips.
yep. And if I can expand this just for a minute, there was another study in 2020 done by the Gallup poll people. What do you hear this? That in 2020 alone, they estimated that people who operated, what shall we say, as a target of a manipulator, those who were unhappy, who were depressed at work, who didn't give a positive contribution to the company, they cost companies $2 trillion of lost revenue. There's
That doesn't surprise me at all.
no, but there's actual numbers here, folks. We're not saying to you that this is just something you have to be aware of. Companies, if you're a company leader out there, you need to know this. You need to
And the
know
way
that. It's
accept it
affecting
and
me.
don't want to address it, because
Yeah,
backlash is real.
yeah,
Backlash is very real. Dennis, we have a mutual friend who's in the corporate world. I won't say, I'll tell you who it is later, but she told me during COVID, it was pretty funny. She said, who's most upset about COVID? She said the guys who have the swagger in the office, the upper level executives, they aren't able to suck the air out of the room. They're not able to. She said they can no longer pull everybody in the room and just make everybody pay attention to them. She said they're really suffering because now
yeah,
all you
yeah,
have are little postage stamps on a screen, and you can
yeah,
tell people aren't really engaged or paying attention.
yeah, 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 yeah.
They didn't like
And
that.
it's the kind of thing that when we get called in to do the coaching on this sort of a thing, when we get called in, it's the kind of thing we have to first of all figure out who's the manipulator and is there
Yeah.
really manipulation happening here. If you figure it out, then you figure out what do you do with it and how do you fix it. That's a different thing that we do for coaching. Let me give you an
Tough.
example of something that seemed like it was when I got into the company and I found out there were two people involved, one male, one female. One was the boss. It was happened to be he and she. They were close in line, but not quite on the same level. Uh, I met with both of them, and both of them, they lovely people. They both had families. They were great folks. They did things in their community. They were in their own way, separate communities, but they did their own, and they had good names, and they were great at their jobs. So why was I there? I was there because they couldn't work together. Why not? When I talked to this one, well, he does it and he manipulates that. Well, she and he manipulates that. And they both use the term manipulation. Okay.
Oh, that sounds like fun, Dennis.
But both of them were nice people. Neither one's talked about the other one as being negative or nasty. No bad words.
You
Here's
know
what
what
I
a
found.
vision I got of? My
Go ahead.
daughter's hair after she got out of the bathtub with that big rat's nest that you have to now take the comb and just
Right.
try
Yeah.
to detangle it. That's what that visual is for me
Yeah.
of that
Yeah. Yeah.
relationship.
No, here's what happened. Here's what it was. I found that, and I talked to him first. This guy happened to be a good father and all that stuff. Plus, he was a coach of his daughter's soccer team and his son's baseball team. He was a coach outside of his work. Okay, so he came to work. Good guy, nice guy. Everybody liked him, except he didn't get along with this woman. I talked to her. What's with her? She was great. She was perfect in her job. Her numbers were good. She was a straight A student all through school. She was a great learner. So what's going on here? Here's what I found out. And this was the manipulation meant to be good, but it obviously wasn't. He, as her boss, and she, as reporting to him, came from different backgrounds. When he tried to tell her something, teach her something, inform her of something, he did it like a coach, like a baseball coach, a soccer coach. And he talked to her like a coach, like she was a player. She had never been a player in her life. She never played sports, but she was a fabulous student. So she was accustomed to learning, to being taught things, not to being coached things to learn it, to being taught things to learn it. She needed to learn how to either live to be like an athlete and work with a coach, an athletic coach, and or he needed to learn how to be a teacher and work with a person as a teacher student. And then both of them had accusations about the other one, and they were both sort of trying to do it her way, trying to do it his way. They were both manipulating in their way. Neither one was working. So we had to bring them to a level of understanding about where and how the manipulation was happening. We didn't want to call them manipulators. You're not nasty. They did it for nefarious reasons, but they were trying and it wasn't working. So
Yeah, that's a good
manipulation
point. That
happened
kind of
in different
manipulation.
ways. What, hon?
That's a good point that you made about they weren't necessarily manipulators who
Yeah,
only know how to do control for the sake of control. They were
yeah.
people who were manipulating the situation to get it to go their way, which
Right,
is
right.
more common in business, in life in general. I mean, let's face it, most people are usually trying to manipulate a situation to go their way.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly what was happening there. So
But that's
we
where
couldn't.
somebody like you, objective, comes in, you see it, and you literally can fix it. That's a fixable, as
Yeah, it
long as
was.
you have reasonable people.
It was, and they were both quite accepting, and they were both. I don't. I well, he well she. I don't. They both were like that at the beginning, of course, and
Yeah, it
once
takes
we
time.
got them to understand it, it wasn't like we could give them the same sort of techniques that we've given to many of you here and in the book. The techniques for handling specific tactics at the like love bombing and blaming and all that sort of stuff that we talked about over the episodes. It wasn't exactly like that. So we couldn't give them those kind of techniques per se, but we had to find, this is why we come at it from the perspective of communication. We had to find communication strategies and techniques that worked for them, that helped each one of them to feel okay about it. And they finally accepted each other and stopped complaining about the other and began to work well together. And it did well for the company as well. But see, that's an example of how that company, and I don't want to name them, but they're a very big company and they special. Well, I don't even tell you that because we'll give it away. But they're a
Yeah.
very big company in their field. They're probably the largest in their field. And that company was suffering. Why? Because the supply chain didn't work and this wasn't going, and we couldn't figure out why. There was the cost, came from that little thing that was going on between the two of them. That's why this
Dennis,
sort of thing is important.
can you see me?
Yeah, I see you. Fine.
Oh, something
Probably,
weird just happened.
well, if everybody sees you the way I do, we all see you fine.
Oh, there I am. Okay. You know, I block everything and do not disturb, but I have named exceptions where my daughters, and of course, it
Oops.
bumped me off the screen.
Yeah.
We're always learning. That's the point. We're all always learning. And if you wait until you know everything perfectly to do something, you won't do anything. So let that be an example to you. We don't have technology down or perfect, but we're doing it anyway.
Do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
You know, if we can just stay on this business corporate level for just a second,
Yes.
there are actually, in addition to inviting a coach in to help you solve the problem, there are actually federal laws that govern this sort of a thing. There's a federal law which is called the Federal Law for Trafficking Victims, the Trafficking Victims Protection Law. I wanted to write that down so I got it right. There's a law, federal law, that says you can't do this. Now you got to figure out what it is and how it is being done, and then you can either prosecute the case or not.
Yeah.
Uh,
What is it? What is the it you're talking about?
the it is whatever is happening to the worker that makes them feel victimized. That's why they call this
So it's
trafficking victims protection law.
So you're talking about just vague, very vaguely anything. I feel like you're
Talking about the federal government, dear.
well,
So things are purposely vague so that they can move it around if they need it. But my
okay,
point
well,
is that there are laws against this sort of thing, and you and I are, not involved with enforcing the law that way. But I wanted to let you know that on a grander scale, this does not go unnoticed. So if you're suffering from this at work, you're not necessarily alone, and there may be some things that you can do about it, other than talking to us and coming to us about it.
well, you should always go to your HR department. But I did have a client once that HR was the problem. So, it
Yeah, yeah.
this is I think it's very important for anybody in hiring, in management or in HR who first of all, you probably already know and have had experiences with a very manipulative person who's caused problems and mostly inefficiency and ineffectiveness in an organization or lowered morale. It
Mhm.
is essential for you to address this situation. It does not get better. And typically, somebody who's a full blown manipulator, that's the type of person that ends up filing workman's comp, suing the company, bringing,
Mhm.
accusing you. They refuse to accept any accountability or blame on themselves. So
Mhm.
if they become you have to be very careful of the backlash, I guess is my point.
Mhm.
So the way that you handle them, the way you address it has to be done in a way where they're allowed to save some face, because if
Yeah.
they feel cornered, they'll do ridiculous,
And
very
the tendency can be on the part of those in HR or others. The tendency may be to want to knock them. Yeah. Here's what, and you go after them. Well, that can cause a lot
mm,
of difficulty
I haven't
in
seen much of that. And
the consumer line and so forth. But this is where those $2 trillion in company losses come from. You have to get a lawyer, got to go to court, take them off the work line, and so forth.
I think it mostly comes from them not addressing it, Dennis. The
Oh, when you,
cost
of course, when you don't,
mostly
of course, it goes both
because
ways.
when
Great
when
moment.
they reward the behavior and ignore it,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
costs them more than they can ever know because they are losing good talent. People are leaving because they don't want that work environment.
Of course.
And the key, sorry about for that. The real key is if you can not hire them in the first place,
Yeah. Well,
remembering that manipulators are very smart,
yeah.
and they can be very charismatic and very persuasive. So just
Mhm.
remember, the only thing I can say is if it sounds too good to be true when you are
Mhm.
interviewing, take another look
Yeah.
at it
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
without
Because
changing the
when people are manipulators at heart, let's say, let's go down that path for a moment. Let's say they were born and bred manipulators. When they go that way, they will hide it from you, and they will try their best to hide it from you when you're interviewing HR for the job. But once they're in there, the first time you get a clue, a cue that might be something off a little bit about that, look into it. Don't ignore it. Find out because manipulators are very good, as we've said, good communicators, but they're also very good at hiding it. And they're also good at providing what Robin's favorite word, backlash. When you say something, what are you talking about? Oh, you're too, or they'll do, oh, come on, you're too sensitive. There's a lot of different ways they'll give you backlash. So you have to be very careful about that as well. But don't
We
be
only have
afraid to.
a couple of minutes left. I just want to make a statement about families, which is that it does the same thing in a family. It's not costing you necessarily money, but it's costing you in, the way that the way you feel, the real estate in your brain. You'll have entire families
Mhm,
orbiting around this person, spinning in circles, strategizing, trying to
mhm,
figure out how to contain the damage. I mean, it's no secret to anybody who's read the book that the person who created me was extremely manipulative. And I can't even tell you the amount of energy and time that's gone into trying to figure out how to keep her from destroying a family event, from making things terrible. And literally to the point where we've tag teamed, babysat, and occupied and distracted her at a family event. So you may have somebody like this in your family, and then you may have a
mhm,
family event without that person, and you realize, oh my gosh, it's so much better. Everybody's relaxed. Nobody's defensive or paranoid or crying or screaming and arguing. And you go, what's missing? Well, our manipulator isn't here.
mhm.
So it's it's hard because if you love that person and you care for that person, it's really it's very tough. Very, very,
It's
very
it's
tough.
it's tough at work too, but once that person is gone, you will notice the difference. Your teams will
Oh
work
my
better,
gosh, the best thing you could
everything.
ever do because it
Don't
won't
hesitate.
get
And I might add here, Robin, that and to all of you who are viewing and listening, you can see that we're passionate about this and we have a lot to say about it. And we have a short period of time here. But this is one of the reasons we want to invite you to the workshops that we have, because we have a chance to talk to you personally, interpersonally, talk with you about specific techniques that work, to try it out, to practice it, to coach you.
give you
So we
skills that you
put
practice.
absolutely. And it's nice to meet with you and visit with you this way. But when you attend any of these workshops, and they're on our website, uh,
Outwitinrealtime.com.
there it is. Outwittinrealtime.com. We'll have the chance to meet with you, talk with you, hear the ins and outs of your concerns. So whether they're professional along this corporate level that we've been talking about today, or they're personal, which we talk about so much in these episodes, it doesn't matter. We'll address both of them, but we need to see you. So come visit us, check out the website, and we'll have the chance to visit together. Be a
We'll be
pleasure.
able to develop skills that you cannot unlearn once
Yeah,
you have.
yeah.
That's how profound our training and coaching is on this subject. Once you have it, you will have it for the rest of your life, and it will make your life better because there is so much suffering as a result of dealing with a manipulator.
That's a good way to conclude, Robin. Thank you for saying that. And, the same goes for manipulators, whether they're professed and confessed manipulators or they're incidental and they don't mean it that way, but it's still manipulation, as we've been talking about today. Don't ignore these things. Don't ignore them. Confront them, address them. Now, we've taught you in our book, we teach you a lot of things about how to do that. We're not doing that here today, but we want to let you know that we're aware of it and we know how to address these things. So we give you hints here and there. Come to our workshops. We'll give you more training about it. So for today, we just want to remind you that these manipulators are everywhere in your life. Don't ignore it. Don't be put off. Don't be frightened by it. You've learned some techniques for how to address it. So speak up. Don't be hesitant to do it. Speak up. It will be better for you, better for your family, your team, your company. Don't be part of that $2 trillion loss. Help yourself, and we'll help you do it. In the meantime, don't forget to look us up on our website, outwittingrealtime.com. And if that's all we have time for today, then I will simply say, as we always do, for my lovely colleague, Robin Golinski, thank you for being with us. I'm Dr. Dennis Becker. Bye for now.